So thank you very much for the Vancouver Foundation, Vancouver Hospice, letting me come and talk to you all. I'm actually not the it says on your form that I'm the president of Vision Travel. Now, I might like to do that because they have 500 travel agents across Canada, and I don't know, $650 million a year in business. So we'd all like that, but I'm actually not that. I'm actually the director of Expand Your World Travel, which is we're a subsidiary of Vision Travel, and my partner who lives in Ottawa and I run a company that just focuses on travel for people who require extra support to travel. Although my past experience is definitely in the world of disabilities, what I'm finding is that the things I learned helping people to travel who have disabilities are completely applicable to people who are aging, people who need hip replacements, people whose knees don't work as well as they used to, people who have medical conditions that require extra support, and people who are just aging and just don't want to do it on their own. And so what we've started focusing on is not necessarily just people with disabilities. So, our motto is travel where no one gets left behind at home. Okay, so apparently I have a fade thing. Oh, there we go, look at that. So, so I have this little vision of me as a fairy godmother who comes along and waves fairy dust at everyone and makes people's dreams come true. And so this is me and my business partner Janet as fairy godmothers. So between the two of us, we have 37 years experience as travel advisors. And what we've really been focusing on is creating contacts worldwide with people who can support us. And I'm really astonished that, you know, in an age where we've got an aging population, that not more people is focusing on this as an issue. However, I do have some extraordinary suppliers around the world that can do things like take people in wheelchairs around Pompeii, and there are actual sailboats out there that are completely wheelchair accessible, and they take a number of guests on the sailboats and they help learn how to sail the boats, like tall ship, old school sailing. It's very cool. So I have these contacts worldwide now, and it means that when someone says, you know, I really, really want to take my son on a safari to Africa and he's in a wheelchair, I can do it. So it's pretty brilliant. When I take on a new client, a lot of what I'm doing is really finding out a lot about them and what their issues are, so that what I can do is then customize travel towards them. And so the largest independent travel agency in Canada is Vision Travel. We're also members of Virtuoso, which is a networking organization that's kind of banded together all the best travel companies in the world, suppliers in the world, like cruise lines and hotels, and put them under a banner called Virtuoso. And if anyone books a Virtuoso supplier with me, the supplier gives them extras. So if you're in a hotel that's a Virtuoso hotel, you'll get a credit and you'll get an upgrade and you'll get free breakfast and those kind of things for no extra money, which is very cool. Okay, fade. Let's see if this works now. Okay, I actually didn't want to say that. What we've got on this slide is in your binder, or your pieces of paper, you've got all my slides written down here. So I have some slides which are really just cheap slides, so I don't forget to say things. So I'm just going to quickly go through that one. And I just wanted to tell you some stories about some of the people we've helped travel. So first, you see the two people in fun hats. So these, let me just see, I don't want to mess around up the names. So Nancy is the lady who says you only live once. And the person you're seeing, the gentleman who she's standing next to, is Robert Bateman. And Robert Bateman actually went on this trip with all of our clients, and she really, really wanted to go with her best friend. and she lives just outside Calgary, and her best friend lives on the island. But she has early stage dementia, and was really a little worried about how she was going to manage all the travel on her own. So we actually arranged for her to fly to Calgary from her hometown, and then she had to stay overnight in Calgary. And my son, who lived in Calgary at the time, picked her up at the airport, took her to the hotel she was staying in overnight, made sure she was all settled and comfortable, and then came back in the morning and picked her up and took her back to the airport to connect with her plane. And then I had arranged that everywhere she got, she would get what we call meet and greet by the airlines, which essentially they put you in a wheelchair and they move you from place to place so you don't get lost. It's a fabulous service. And so she was able to go and spend, it was pretty much 2 weeks in the Galapagos with her friends and with Robert Bateman. So that was really exciting. It was a brilliant trip. And then on the right we have a Hawaiian cruise ship. And this was a lady who lived in Ottawa who had just had a hip replacement. And she couldn't sit for a really long time, but she wanted to take her children and her grandchildren on a trip to Hawaii for Christmas. So we sorted out the only airline that has the lie flat beds in first class that flies from New York City to Hawaii. And we got her fitted out so that she would have a lie flat bed, so she could go to Hawaii with her family. And they had an absolutely amazing trip. So sometimes you just have to kind of think out of the box a bit. So that's just telling you all about what I said. Fade it again. I like this fade thing, but it's a bit slow. Anyway, so some of the other things we do, the ways we help support people is we can hire personal support workers for people. And the lady being kissed by the seal there, every year she does a trip with a young woman who has disabilities, and the two of them go places together. And she supports this young woman, but what we've actually been able to do is hook her up with another person who requires support, so that they kind of share her support services, and it means it's much less expensive. So she goes as part of a group, and then she gets to share the costs, so it's not ridiculous. And in fact, we've got a lovely add-on story to this. The person she supports, who has an intellectual disability, called her and had been contacted by some people who they'd travelled with the year before, who don't have any disabilities. They're just people they sat at the table with on a cruise ship, saying, "Oh, we're going on this Disney cruise, you guys should come too, and we'll be at the same table together." So, because she had a support worker with her who was kind of facilitating the conversation, she made friends that lasted more than one cruise, which was quite lovely. And then that's actually the picture that the Disney picture came from, of myself and my friend Janet. We do hosted trips every year. And in fact, at the back on one of the tables, there's 3 flyers for the 3 hosted trips we're doing in 2016. If anyone's interested, I'll talk about those a little bit more. And what we do when we do a hosted trip is we do all the back-end research to make sure that we have everything arranged that anyone might need prior. So we plan the cruises around the kind of support services people might need, so we know that we can actually do those things in those particular places. And then we also go with. And our intention is not that we will be personal support workers for people. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But what we do is we do the back-end stuff. So we're just there to make sure that people's holidays go perfectly, and smooth out anything difficult, and make all the phone calls to make sure everything's arranged. And if anything gets messed up, then we're there to fix it. So we do that 3 times a year. Well, this year it's 3 times, last year it was 4 times. But we actually have to stay home and look after our families and do work and stuff. So we can't be away all the time, sadly. So, out. over the last couple of years. It's a lovely story, and I know burning question for everyone is always insurance. We will talk insurance. So the family picture, the Disney family picture there, the one with the whole family. There's a young man wearing a Disney cap. His name is James. And James has had 65 neurosurgeries so far. He has a condition called hydrocephalus, which means he gets excess fluid in his brain. And they have these little shunt machines that take the fluid away from his brain underneath his skin. And they block up all the time. So he's constantly going into hospital for surgeries, which means he doesn't exactly qualify for regular insurance. So his mother and I have been friends for a very long time, and she said to me, I really want to take my whole family to Disneyland. I really want to do it, but I'm really worried about James because he won't qualify for any kind of medical insurance because he has a pre-existing condition. I said, okay, so how much time do you have before you know he's getting sick and you need surgery? And she said, oh, I know about 24 hours before it's going to happen because his breath starts to smell different. Like, okay, good, because we can get you home from Disneyland fast enough to have that happen. And I have about brochures for this up front. This is a company that does like medical evacuations. So you join this private club and it's not very expensive, and they have about 6 medically equipped jets positioned all around the world. And you call and say you need to go home. Yeah, those ones. You call and say you need to go home, and within 24 hours they guarantee to come pick you up and take you home. No questions asked, as long as a doctor is not performing active CPR on you, they'll get you home. The medical jet is serious. Or if it's a little too late, they will bring home your remains. And they will also bring home the person you're with. And the jets have a complete medical jet with a nurse and doctor on board. And it doesn't cost you any money once you pay for the medical. It's a brilliant, brilliant system. So I pretty much don't let any of my clients travel without it. Just because it's just a way of getting home really, really fast. And at that point, you don't care whether you're going to get your money back from your holiday. You just need to be home. So, so James, his mum said, okay, this is it. He's had surgery, seems to be looking really good, let's do it. And so she didn't say anything to James about his trip until they got to the airport. He thought he was going to the airport to pick up his aunt, who's the lady in the orange shirt. And they got to the airport and he was like, well, you see this extra suitcase we're carrying, James? This is yours, we're going to Disneyland. And I was in Las Vegas at a big conference, and he called me in the middle of this conference, had to leave the room. So he could shriek at me, Alex, you're sending me to Disneyland, it's so exciting, thank you, thank you, thank you. It made me cry, it was fabulous. So they had a really great vacation, didn't need it, he didn't need to come home by jet, but his parents had the peace of mind of knowing he could come home if he needed it. So the lady with the little girl in a wheelchair who also has a Disney hat on, her name's Katrina, and she has a very, very severe seizure disorder, which has put her into the intensive care ward innumerable times. She's actually followed by the Victoria Hospice Society because she's considered terminally ill. You wouldn't know it from her there, Ro. She looks amazing, huh? Anyway, she was granted a dream through the Helpful a Dream Foundation, and we got it all set up for her, and then she ended up in an intensive care. And we had to cancel the whole thing out. And then about a year later, her mum said, okay, we're ready to try this again. So instead of putting her on a cruise ship, which was my first intention, I just sent her to Disney World. Because it's land, you know, if she needs a medical, it's there. If not, you know, if they can just get her home, she can fly again using the fabulous NetJet. And they had an extraordinary time. That trip was, it was life-changing for her and her mum, because all she'd had for such a long time was just you know, constant in and out of intensive care and managing things. So, so that was a great story. And then I've got a little golf ball there, because I don't have permission for pictures for Emile and his family. Emile lives in Ottawa, and he has cerebral palsy, and he's 15. And he comes from a big French family, and they, one of his sisters is one of these golf phenoms. She's on the junior PGA tour, and she plays golf every second she breathes, and the family wanted to go away on a trip that included golf. So we found them a cruise on Crystal that actually went around Great Britain from Southampton. So Britain, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales. And every stop, there was an opportunity to go to whatever the most famous golf course was around there. And there's a few in Great Britain. And play golf in these, you know, famous golf courses. And there was a PGA player on board the ship. So they're like, oh yeah, but how are we going to deal with Emile? I'm like, we'll get it sorted. So we actually did things with Emile. So when they arrived at their hotel in London, they had 2 days in the hotel in London before they got on the ship, I arranged that all Emile's personal supplies, he has incontinence supplies, all of those were delivered to the hotel for them, so they didn't have to take a giant suitcase full of all this stuff. And I even found, I found an amazing supplier in London. He needs bibs for when he's eating. And I actually found a bib that had been decorated with a bow tie and a frilly shirt down the front, so that he could look like everyone else at the formal dinners on board the cruise ship. So, and we arranged for wheelchair accessible excursions at all the ports they went to. And the family, it was a big family, there were like 12 of them on the ship. So they'd all go off and do their things, but someone would be able to go do something with their meal rather than just sitting around on the ship. So that was really, really fun. It was also super expensive. Apparently they arrived in London. I got a call from the supplier who did the transportation for me. He phoned me up, he said, they came with 44 bags. They actually had to hire a taxi to carry all their bags, just their bags. Hilarious. So the tours that we're going to be doing this year, I've got 2 in Italy and 1 from Vancouver. So of course the great one about Vancouver is no one's flying anywhere, which is brilliant because it's from Vancouver. But the first one we're doing in June, I'm hosting it, and we're flying into Rome. We're doing 2 days in Rome. And yes, I have suppliers in Rome who can get people all around Rome, including into the catacombs in wheelchairs. And then we're going to Capri and Sicily, and then to Kotor and Montenegro, and Dubrovnik, Split, and Ravine, and then 2 days in Venice at the end. And yes, there's a wheelchair accessible gondola now. So I'm pretty thrilled about that. And there's ways, actually, everyone thinks Venice can't possibly be wheelchair accessible, and actually it's pretty good. It's surprisingly good once you know what's out there and how to do it. Yeah, so we're doing that trip. The ship is the Windstar Breeze, which is a 214 passenger yacht. It's like a motor yacht. And so they get to go to all the really small ports, and they get to actually park like right at the port rather than some ways away where there's a place that has enough water underneath it for the big ships. Which just means that the whole time you're in port, you've got an opportunity to actually do stuff rather than it being travel time to and from, which is great. And we have 2 excursions going on because this cruise is actually a Virtuoso cruise. So Virtuoso gives you some choices. First of all, you get a host, which happens to be me. And then and the host will be on the ship and will be kind of just like making sure that the people who are all Virtuoso guests get to kind of be a bit of like an internal club together. And so there's a cocktail party. So actually probably several cocktail parties because I'll be arranging And there's either a beautiful shore excursion, which is going to be in Dubrovnik, or a shipboard credit, or we will arrange an excursion for you, and all for free, just because you book with a Virtuoso agent. So even if you're not going to book with me, go find yourself Virtuoso agents. You can find the information for wherever you're living. There's plenty of them in Vancouver at virtuoso.com. And you can find an agent and you can check out them and decide who would be the right kind of agent for you. So that's our trip in June. And yes, there are still spaces on the ship because I checked this morning. And the flights even aren't too bad price-wise to get there even now, this far out. It's still not an insane price for the flights. So in July, Janet is going to be hosting an Alaska and Canada West Coast cruise out of Vancouver on Crystal Cruises. And again, there's a flyer up there for it. And the picture of the guy in the middle is Nobu, who's one of those celebrity chefs. And the theme for this cruise is all, food. He's going to be taking people to choose food in all the ports and doing special demonstrations. And apparently his food is amazing. And as you can see, he looks pretty jolly. I don't mind hanging out with him. He looks like he's really fun. And again, this is a Virtuoso sailing. So you get the host, you get the cocktail party, and you get the choice of a benefit. Yeah, so that's in July. And then finally, I'm doing exactly the same itinerary in Italy as I'm doing in June, except the opposite way around, starting in Venice and ending in Rome. But we're adding into it 6 days prior. We're going to fly into Venice 6 days before the cruise begins. 7 days before the cruise starts, and we're going to take buses out into the Veneto, which is the province above Venice, and do food and wine tastings, and go and pick olives, and all the meals have been pre-arranged. It's going with a guy called Steve Duck, who for 10 years worked as a tour guide in Italy, and Tracy Harper, his partner, is a international photographer who just won a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Canadian Photography Association, whatever, I don't know what the company, the organization is, in Calgary. She went there and she picked up her award a week and a half ago. So Steve's going to be teaching her how to speak a little Italian and how to eat and drink really well, and Tracy's going to help people with their photographs. And then we'll get on a cruise and do the same cruise only backwards. And then 2 days in Rome at the end. Now, yeah, done that, just talked about all that. Okay, so one of the ways to actually get a really reasonably priced trip for yourself is to create your own group. If you have a church group or a knitting group or a book club or a big family or a choir group or any interest group of any sort, and you'd all like to travel together, bridge groups are good. If anyone's a bridge player, they love to travel together. If you want to talk to us about setting something up, for every, I think it's usually around, for every 8 rooms that you fill, the 9th one is free. So we have a lot of groups that are set up by people who want to go travel together, and they get a discount, and then they can use that any way they want to. And we do things for people who don't want to travel with us but have really good ideas about what they've got on their bucket list. So we will obviously do, completely custom trips for people, which is actually the next slide. I'm almost finished. How am I doing for time? Am I good? Okay, thank you, Sam. Oh yeah, do your own thing. So yeah, so in terms of doing your own thing, you know, like, if you have your own idea and you don't want to share, we can create a custom itinerary for you. A lot of people just don't want to go with a bunch of other people. And we can do amazing things, which I haven't had the guts to do as a group yet, but I probably will at some point. For instance, I now have 3 suppliers in Africa who do wheelchair accessible safaris, which I think is the coolest thing ever. But we can pretty much do anything. I could actually even probably send you out on Virgin Galactic into space. Because Virtuoso is a supplier to Virgin Galactic. It'll only cost $300,000 each. And that's US dollars. But we can do anything. You just have to, it's all a question of time and money. So, and we can also, I wanted to mention this, I can provide some equipment for people. So this gentleman in his rolling wheelchair, his beach wheelchair, we rent things like that for people when they get into places. So we can supply, I've been asked to do things like pressure neutral air beds, the ones that have air that comes up, so a person who has pressure sores isn't actually lying on anything except air. So I've supplied that for people, lift equipment, wheelchair accessible vehicles, we've done all of it. So anything, I haven't actually had anything yet that I couldn't do. I may have to modify their itinerary to get them what they want, because there are some places in the world that don't get wheelchair accessibility. So, and this is my favorite thing I ever did. This is a gentleman who's quadriplegic, and he doesn't have very much communication. He uses a really cool computer board to communicate, and it had been his dream all his life to go to the top of Machu Picchu. And it wasn't easy, because he has some medical conditions, so we actually had to acclimatize him really slowly to the altitude. So he had several breaks in the middle, and we had to set him up at kind of one of those glamping camp kind of tent things on the slope on the way up, so he could have 2 overnights on the way up so that his body could acclimatize properly. But he got to the top of Machu Picchu. He had 4 guides who literally carried his wheelchair with him in it up the mountainside. And yes, it was really expensive. But you know what? That was his bucket list item, right? That was the thing he had to do, and he's done it. And every time I see him, he types into his machine, Machu Picchu! It's like, yes, that would be me.